So then, first off, why do you believe that you are the target of so much criticism so often? And in general, what are your feelings about it? Of
Criticism? Me? I have no idea what you mean.
course,
Uh,
we're
you mean just for being a live streamer or for me being me?
going to go for you being you, whether that is your politics, your personality, your platform.
Um, well, at the risk of, jerking myself off so hard that I break my arm, I'm not very group thinky, in the sense that and this is just a good business strategy, by the way. I'm not knocking people who do this necessarily, but I'm not very good at holding my tongue and not getting into fights because it would be sort of politically expedient to me to avoid doing that. So I've gotten into plenty of arguments with the rest of the online left. The biggest departure that I had with the rest of the online left in a lot of ways was me insisting that we continue to support Joe Biden after Bernie Sanders dropped out of the 2020 Democratic primaries. A
Mhm.
decision which was as close as you can get objectively correct, for achieving or left-leaning goals, or at least preventing further right-leaning goals from being accomplished. But unfortunately, not everyone saw eye to eye with me. I'm also a generally combative person. I also think that the online left has kind of an aesthetic bias towards certain types of content production, and because I'm sort of like a loud, big, aggressive guy, that I fit outside of that range, which makes me more appealing to some people who would otherwise feel ostracized from the left. But I think it makes some people uncomfortable. Oftentimes, when people criticize me, I feel like they're criticizing a kind of imagined version of me that has no relation to what I actually say or do or act like. But it's constructed from kind of like an image of me they might have, that they might be more inclined to be uncharitable towards.
And what image of you is that?
Oh, just as like a big, angry, like misogynist gamer debate bro guy, right? Even if you take a lot of these terms in isolation, outside of misogynist, which is a bad thing to be, you say something like gamer or debate bro or like a big guy. There are connotations there. A lot of online left leaning political messaging is very aesthetically geared towards people who are already left leaning. A good example of this might be the fact that there are so many left leaning content creators who are like trans or otherwise queer people with soft, like bisexual lighting behind them, who use academic progressive terminology to discuss ideas that, let's be real, 95% of Americans don't have much of an interest in or know very much about. There's nothing wrong with those types of videos, by the way. I've enjoyed tons of them, but it doesn't do much to reach outside the aisle. And I think that so much of the discomfort towards me is a discomfort really with diversity of tactics. The idea that behaving in different ways, trying to reach different audiences, hit different aesthetic keynotes can be a good way of reaching people who might otherwise kind of block you together and not listen to you.
Mhm. So then, if you deviate from other people in terms of who they're trying to reach, what they are trying to say, who are the groups that you are trying to reach that they may be neglecting?
Well, I think the big weakness of the left strategically over the past decade, I think, has been the idea that we're all fuddy-duddies. We're not capable of having fun. We're very morally Puritan. We'll call people out. We'll hold people to account. We're obsessed with constant internal critique. To an extent, these things are true, though not as much as people say, I think. I think it's an issue within the left, but there's still certainly plenty of ways to be a leftist and still be like irreverent or jokey, non-dogmatic, silly. One of the big advantages that the right has had over the past decade, at least online, is the idea that being conservative means freedom. You can make whatever jokes you want, and you will not be criticized for it. You do not have to improve as a person. That's kind of the selling point, right? Like, imagine you're a 14-year-old white boy in high school. I was once one of those. And you imagine some kind of personification of left and right messaging who each try to pull you in. And this kind of does happen online for a lot of young people. And for the right, it's just like, haha, look how epic we are. Look how edgy we are, owning these people. Aren't we smart? Aren't we cool? Aren't we funny? These, self-aggrand or like self-congratulatory motifs are really appealing to a lot of people who have insecurity issues. And then the left is all like, oh, there are so many problematic things you do, so many trends you contribute to. You're going to have to completely rebuild yourself. You're going to have to critique this, check your privilege, check that, and maybe you can be a good person. You have a lot to atone for. I don't think that's completely accurate for how the left behaves, but fuck, it feels like it sometimes. I think it's important to show that you can be kind of funny and irreverent, edgy, maybe a little problematic, and still be a left-leaning person, to still be a good person. And if you can show people that, I think you can show them that the left isn't a monolith and that there's value in listening to the ideas because they won't come at the cost of like total self-deprecation or like neutering, you know?
Mhm. So then, lighthearted, edgy, kind of not sacrificing fun, as you say, to what ends? What are your overall goals? What do you hope to achieve by having this persona, this platform, and bringing people over to the left?
Well, I don't hope to achieve anything by acting that way. That's just the way that I act. I did that before I streamed. It hasn't really changed. I just think that people like me tend to be kind of like on the periphery of the left, or we tend to move right, because we don't like being constantly criticized for behaviors that are aesthetically problematic, but not substantively so. But my hope is that if I can do this and be successful doing this, which clearly I am, at least to some extent, I can show there's a broader market and a broader audience. I just think that people will move towards ideologies and communities where they feel comfortable being themselves, and where they have a good time. Nobody wants to be a part of an ideology that means they'll be unhappy. That doesn't that's not a good hook under any circumstances, not even for political ideology. People don't make political choices based on some kind of like pure ethical evaluation of the world they live in. We're afflicted by a number of biases, and a lot of those will be biases of convenience. We will be more likely to favor ideologies that benefit us to begin with. It's one of the reasons why wealthy people are more likely to be in favor of stuff like austerity, lower taxes on businesses. It's not all just like, conniving Machiavellian internal politicking. A lot of them legitimately believe, now that they are wealthy and thus are exposed to information that is, in their cultural circle, they legitimately move towards those ideologies. It helps that they're to their benefit. Likewise, if it can be to the benefit of people to, move over to the left, which it certainly will seem so if they're not, kicked out for being kind of edgy, then they're more likely to move that way. And that's what I want to go for.
So then, um, real quickly finishing up this discussion of kind of criticisms, and then you can move on to another part. Any of these critiques against you, do you believe they may have merit, or they may be coming from a genuinely earnest place?
Oh, sure. I think I get a lot of bad faith criticism that I genuinely think is worth discarding. Like it's constructed either maliciously or off an image of me that just is not reality. But of course, I'm not perfect. There are plenty of legitimate criticisms. But it's worth noting that that question that you've asked me, or I guess the attitudes that lead towards people asking that themselves outside an interview format, is one of the things I'm talking about, right? People on the right don't really do this, like content creators on the right don't have this rigorous, like, well, you've listened to all this criticism and what do you think you can change about yourself and how do people still bicker within the right, but there's not an expectation of continuous self-improvement to an imagined ideal. Self-improvement is good. Don't get me wrong. We should listen to valid criticism. But past a certain point, when you receive a level of criticism that is unhelpful, unwarranted, or inaccurate, which I think I do, it becomes detrimental. It becomes more about like purity testing. So a lot of the criticism that I get, it's valid and appreciated. But I do think we should be careful about trying to push purity too far, because no human can hold up to a certain level of scrutiny. It's different level for every human, of course. But there is a limit for everyone. Nobody behaves perfectly ethically at all times. And if we're chasing people down that road too far, then it doesn't actually achieve anything outside of foster infighting and division.